What's up, y'all? Welcome into Grind City Media's Draft Board Breakdown presented by Southland. I'm Lang Whitaker, and we've been rolling out these podcasts for the last few weeks, going through different players, getting you ready for the NBA draft. And Gary Parrish and I sat down a week ago and recorded an entire first-round mock draft. And at the 16th pick, we had the Orlando Magic selecting Nique Clifford. Turns out the Orlando Magic are not going to draft at 16. The Memphis Grizzlies have traded up to that 16th pick. Nique Clifford is absolutely a guy who could be in play for the Grizzlies, but we'll see how it all plays out down the road. If you want to know more about the Grizzlies draft possibilities, tune into a later podcast Michael Wallace and I recorded for this same series. But you can just tune in now and watch all the other 29 picks in the first round and see how we kind of had this whole thing working out. So appreciate you watching. Stay tuned now for the mock draft. Gary Parrish and myself. You're watching Grind City Media's Draft Board Breakdown presented by Southland. What's up, y'all? Welcome into Grind City Media's Draft Board Breakdown show presented by Southland Casino. I'm Lang Whitaker, joined by Gary Parrish. We have worked our way through this draft, getting you ready for the NBA draft coming up on June 25th. And we've gotten to the point now where we've kind of covered most of the big names, most of the big positions, everything else. So now we gotta do our mock draft.
Can't get through a pre-draft process without presenting a mock draft on video. This will be the first one out there. There are no other mock drafts on YouTube anywhere. This is the only one.
This is the only one that's important.
This is the only one that's important.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna go for our mock draft. Gary, you have won the first pick in the first annual GCM draft lottery.
Congrats to me.
Yes. So drafting for the Dallas Mavericks, and we're gonna try to draft for fit for teams and position and all that stuff too, right?
Just full transparency, the way we're going to go about this is if we were making this pick on behalf of this franchise, this is what we...
At this moment.
In this moment in time, this is what we would do. Yeah. So we'll start right at the top.
Go ahead.
With the number one pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Dallas Mavericks select, surprise, Cooper Flagg out of Duke. This is a no-brainer. Yeah. I appreciate you letting me go first because I at least get one where I don't even have to think about it. And it wouldn't have mattered which franchise won the lottery. Yeah. Nobody has to think about this. This isn't always true. Sometimes you have a group of prospects at the top of any draft and different franchises would view them differently. If this franchise wins the lottery, they'll take this person. This franchise wins the lottery, they would take a different person. Not true this year. All 30 franchises would use the first pick on Cooper Flagg. As you know, he led Duke in 5 major individual statistical categories. He is the youngest Wooden Award winner ever. Yeah. If not for a collapse in the Final Four, not necessarily by him, but by his team, he would have been playing for a national championship and would have been favored in that game. Duke still finished number 1 at KenPom this season. So Cooper Flagg is going to be the number 1 pick in the draft, and the Dallas Mavericks will theoretically spend more than a decade building around him, but you never know. They could just randomly trade him in the middle of February one year.
Where have we heard that before? All right, with the second pick in the draft, I'm drafting for the San Antonio Spurs, and we're going to take Dylan Harper out of Rutgers, 6'4.5", 6'5", guard. And now, look, there's questions here about this pick. Are the Spurs, they already have Stephon Castle, they have Vassell, they have other guys who are good guards. Is this redundant? And I kind of feel like no. And it doesn't matter which team is going to draft second. I kind of feel like as sure as we are, Cooper Flagg is going to be the first pick. It feels pretty certain Dylan Harper is going to be the number 2 pick. Ability to control the game, shot it okay, 33% from 3, but averaged 19 points for that Rutgers team. And I think he fits in. I always think about we saw Detroit back in 2003 pass on Carmelo Anthony because they were like, oh, we have Rip Hamilton and Tayshaun Prince. Right. And now you see, well, just get all the good players you can. That's and this guy's probably the second best player in this draft.
That's exactly right. The biggest draft mistake of all time, or at least the most famous one, was you don't draft a shooting guard when you already have Clyde Drexler.
Right.
Well, that's how you pass on Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And the rest is history, as they say. You're exactly right here. And I think San Antonio and Philadelphia are similar in the sense that they're picking in the top 3 in the draft. And their current roster construction suggests maybe they should go this way or that way. But that high in just about any draft, I'm taking best prospect available.
Yeah.
And that's why whether the Spurs package this deal, package this pick in a deal to make a run at Giannis or KD or somebody, or whether they just execute the pick, I do agree with you. Dylan Harper will be the second player off the board, which brings us to Philadelphia at 3. And they're similar to San Antonio in the sense that the current roster construction suggests they might not need another guard. They have Tyrese Maxey. They have Jared McCain. And they're also similar in the sense that they could package this pick with something to try to make a deal for a veteran. So we'll see. But if I'm picking third, I'm taking Tre Johnson out of the University of Texas.
All right.
And I'm higher on him than most. And most mock drafts you see will have Ace Bailey going here. Mm-hmm. And Ace Bailey might go here, and Ace Bailey might be awesome. But, and reasonable minds can disagree, in my mind, Tre Johnson is the third best prospect in this draft behind Cooper Flagg and Dylan Harper. He's a 6'5 guard, great athlete, shot nearly 40% from three on nearly 7 attempts per game. I don't care if you have Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain. You should still take the best prospect available and figure it out. And Tre Johnson, in my mind, is the best prospect available at this point in this draft. I would have the Sixers taking him third.
All right. Well, I get the 4th pick then with the Charlotte Hornets. And I know Ace Bailey's been tossed around as this top 3-4 guy, but I'm going to go VJ Edgecombe for the Hornets. We already know LaMelo Ball's there, Bridges is there, and you kind of need some other guard to fit in there. And I feel like Edgecombe could be that guy. 6'4", but an incredible athlete, amazing defender, can score, a really great player. You think he would probably even be a higher prospect if he's a little bit taller, maybe. But had a great season this year at Baylor, and I feel like for this Charlotte team that's still building, still trying to kind of figure out their path forward. Charles Lee had a great year there this year. They're going to figure some stuff out, but you get a guy in there like VJ Edgecombe, 19 years old, who can be a piece of this thing going forward.
He makes a lot of sense there, in part because he's a plus defender.
Yeah.
Like, of these wings that we're talking about, he's like in this range, he's considered the best perimeter defender out of the group.
Yeah.
So he makes a lot of sense between LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller.
And also feels like Ace Bailey is sort of redundant with Brandon Miller. And I know we talked about you don't want to get, don't worry about redundancies.
Right. But there is some thought that this is where the Hornets will be picking between similar prospects, and then you do maybe look for, of the similar prospects, which one fits best with us.
Yeah.
I think the way this draft is going to unfold, as always, we'll see. But there's really not a lot of question at 1. There's not a lot of question at 2. I think there is question at 3.
Yeah.
But then if Edge comes on the board at 4, it does feel like everybody has him slotted there. I'll be surprised if he doesn't end up there. So the way our mock draft is unfolding, you've got those 4 guys off the board. Then I do think, in the spirit of just best prospect available, this is where Ace Bailey would come off the board for me. 5th to the Utah Jazz. This is obviously lower than you see him in most mock drafts. He's an incredible talent, undeniable upside potential, all those buzzwords, but he is kind of a one-dimensional player at this point. He just scores. He doesn't really pass it, doesn't really seem interested in passing it, not even sure if he's capable of passing it. He's not considered a plus defender at this point. And the biggest thing working against him relative to what we thought as his freshman season unfolded at Rutgers is that he's not nearly as tall as he was listed at Rutgers.
Yeah.
Back during the season, you would hear things like Ace Bailey, 6'10" wing, can really score it. He's not. He's 6'7.5".
Yeah.
Okay? So he's not. That changes things. Now, I don't think it causes him to fall out of the top 10 or anything like that. And I won't be shocked if we look up in 5 years and we go, oh man, this is the best one from the draft. He could be. He's got that kind of talent. But he's a flawed player right now, a flawed prospect right now. He's not nearly as long and lengthy as he was advertised. But at this point in the draft, even if I have some questions about Ace Bailey as a prospect, I believe in the potential enough to where at this point, if he's on the board, I'm Utah, I'm still totally rebuilding. I'm going to bet on the talent and see if I can make it into what some people believe it can become.
I feel like that's sort of the situation with the 6th pick also. The Wizards, everyone thought, hey, they're going to be in the Cooper Flagg running here, and then they end up getting the 6th pick in this draft. They've got so many tall, long, kind of athletic guys. They don't really have a point guard on this roster, and I feel like Jeremiah Fears is the best point guard in this draft. One of the youngest players, if not the youngest player in this draft class, just over 18 years old, but 6'3", scored a ton of points this year for Oklahoma and showed an ability to be sort of the electric type player. I keep thinking of the Wizards with John Wall and having that guy who was this incredible athlete, the head of the snake, and the Wizards don't really have that kind of leader. I feel like you're making a bet on this. We'll see if he turns out. If the shot develops, this will be too low for him. If it doesn't develop, this will be too high for him. And this is the thing that I think front office are struggling with right now as it relates to Jeremiah Fears. He has I don't know if it's a wide range in reality, but there's a lot of different opinions about him. For some people, he's not even a lottery option because I'm not drafting I'm not spending a lottery pick on somebody who can't shoot. All right? Do you watch basketball these days? If you can't shoot, it's a problem.
I'm not going to spend a lottery pick on somebody who can't shoot. I think this is his range. This is where I would have him going as well. I would if I were picking for you, I would have picked him as well.
Yeah.
But the shot has to come around. He was below 30% from 3. Now we're to 7. New Orleans Pelicans. I've got him taking Knueppel.
Yep.
Out of Duke. He was Cooper Flagg's sidekick there, the Robin to his Batman, but could have been a Batman somewhere else. And he's arguably the best shooter available in this draft. I guess Tre Johnson might have something to say about that, but certainly with Tre Johnson off the board, Knueppel becomes the best shooter available. But he's not just a shooter. He's a well-rounded basketball player.
Yeah.
He can guard his position better than some understand. And he can do more than shoot. And who knows where they're headed with that Pelicans franchise as it relates to Zion Williamson. Just Google his name. There's been some wild stuff out there recently.
Yeah.
But as long as you are still trying to build around him, you're forever in search of shooters to just create the space that he needs to play in. And Knueppel can obviously do that. If he's on the board at 7, that's who I'm taking if I'm New Orleans.
Yeah, well, let's keep our Duke guys going here because with the 9th pick, I got the Brooklyn Nets. Another team that's sort of in this rebuild mode and trying to figure out sort of what their path is going forward. They have a ton of assets in these next few drafts. So I've got them taking a teammate of Knueppel, Khaman Maluach from Duke, 7'1", kid from South Sudan, had all the athletic and all the measurables and all that stuff you're looking for. Not really a great shooter, but can kind of do everything else. And maybe that's the kind of guy you can build around on the inside. And if the shot comes around, great. But for now, I think he can control the boards, block shots, get you some points in the paint, do those kind of things, and gives the Nets maybe someone to build around long term.
It was just a few years ago where I had people who worked in NBA front offices tell me, period, they would not take a center in the top 10.
Yeah.
I think we've just gotten away from that. Like, if you watch these playoffs unfold, everybody needs somebody big like that.
Yeah.
You're gonna get into a moment where you just need somebody big, and like there aren't many humans who look like Khaman Maluach.
Yeah.
There aren't many humans who walk around like him and can move like him. Like he is very unique and totally sensible pick for Brooklyn in that point. Now we're to number 9, Toronto Raptors picking. I've got them taking Kasparas Jakucionis, the one and done standout from Illinois. International player, but did play college basketball in America. He's not an explosive athlete, but he does have a diverse skill set, high basketball IQ. He only shot 32% from 3 in his one season at Illinois, and obviously that's not ideal, but he can really score it despite the shooting issues. And the shooting issues, most believe, aren't as magnified as they might look in that number. In other words, they think he's a better shooter than that showed. And either way, he's a crafty, creative basketball player. You put the ball in his hands, let him go. This is the range where he's going to be anticipating his name getting called. And for our purposes, he goes 9th to Toronto.
All right. Well, I got the 10th pick with the Houston Rockets. And it's a veteran team. Don't really have a lot of holes, at least at this spot where you could draft a guy and plug him in right away. So I was thinking, this Rockets team, they have all these wings, guys like Tari Eason, these rough kind of guys. Collin Murray-Boyles feels like such a perfect fit for them out of South Carolina. A little bit undersized, but one of the toughest players, great feel for the game, great defensive player. Not really a shooter, but kind of has everything else. Sort of an athlete along the lines of like the Thompson and all those different players on the Rockets. So if I'm the Rockets, I think Collin Murray-Boyles is a player who makes sense for them long term.
Yeah, and somebody who is going to impact just good basketball stuff on both ends. Like, he's not the most skilled guy in the world. He's not an established shooter. He's not adequately sized for the position he plays, but he can just play basketball. You just talk to anybody who works in basketball, and they say he just knows how to play basketball. Just put him on the court, and good things can happen. He makes sense for a Houston franchise that seems pretty close to trying to take a run at this thing. With the 11th pick, Portland Trailblazers, I've got him taking Carter Bryant out of Arizona. In my personal mock at CBSSports.com, I've got him a little higher than this, but this is my biggest riser since the end of the season. And it's not only because of Carter Bryant, it is because of the basketball that we've watched in these playoffs. And it becomes undeniable that you need people who can do the job he can theoretically do. So when I make this pick, I'm not betting on Carter Bryant as much as I'm just saying this is the type of player, in theory, that you need on the biggest of stages in playoff basketball. And for people who are unfamiliar, he's a long one-and-done wing who the defensive numbers were great at Arizona, but he was just a role player, only averaged like 6.5, 7 points per game. So he didn't have these big eye-popping freshman of the year type of stuff connected to him. Yeah. But there's a real belief among NBA circles that this is the type of guy who can become what Mikal Bridges becomes for the Knicks, or any of these wings we see impacting the playoffs because they can switch everything. Yeah. They can guard smaller guys. They can guard bigger guys. They can step away and make a shot. Just your classic 3-and-D wing. I know some people say, but what if he's only going to be a role player? Awesome role players are worth lottery picks.
Yeah.
The Knicks gave 5 picks to get a role player in Mikal Bridges.
Yeah.
Just try to draft him with 1 pick. And of the guys who we could look up in 5 years and go, the reason this team won a championship is because they had that guy able to take Jason Tatum out of the game or Anthony Edwards out of the game or whoever it is in that moment. Carter Bryant projects as the type of guy who can do that.
Even though his numbers were kind of pedestrian this year.
He was a totally, how about this? I host a college basketball podcast.
Yeah.
We do minimum 3 shows a week. I don't know how much we talked about Carter Bryant all season.
Yeah.
But this isn't about college basketball. Sure. This is about an NBA draft and what do we think you can do down the road. You and I talked about this on a previous episode. It's awesome to be a well-rounded, great basketball player, but that's like LeBron James and Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
90% of the guys in the NBA, they're not great at everything. They're not even great at a lot of things.
Yeah.
They just need to be great at this one thing or these 2 things. And Carter Bryant is somebody who, in theory, if it works, you're going to be able to throw him out there someday and say, that's your job, make everything hard for him, and he'll go out there and make everything hard for him, and then on the other end, make a shot. Those guys are immensely valuable, and of the people on the board at this point, I don't think there's a better prospect for that than him.
Cool. All right, well, I got the Chicago Bulls now with the 12th pick. And this guy is so good, he could have picked him twice. I'm going to go with Derik Queen. Derik Queen out of Maryland. Big body guy. Maybe not the best defender, but a great offensive player. There's a great stat with him. Let me find this. There have only 5 freshmen since 1980 to average 15 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 assists while shooting 50% from the field. He was the 6th. Had a great season for Maryland this year, especially on the offensive end. Big body guy. It's oversimplifying it, but I think big body guy who can play on the interior in Chicago reminds me of Eddie Curry. And we'll see how it works out in the NBA. But I think we're on a Chicago team that is sort of in flux also, and are they gonna rebuild or not? They had a great run in the second half of the season. He's the kind of guy who will come in and give you energy and make you competitive going forward.
Yeah, just another guy who just knows how to play. Knows how to play basketball. Is not going to blow you away physically. Is not going to blow you away athletically. But just put the ball in his hands, and he gets where he's trying to get, and he puts it in the basket. He knows how to play basketball. He's going to go very high in this draft. With the 13th pick, we're to the Atlanta Hawks. I've got him selecting Jase Richardson, the freshman out of Michigan State, son of course, Jason Richardson, 14-year NBA veteran. Jase is interesting in the sense that heralded recruit, went to Michigan State, same school his father went to, played for the same coach his father played for, but wasn't like handed the ball from night one.
Yeah.
He came off the bench much of the season. Michigan State had an injury in its backcourt. Tom Izzo then puts him in the starting lineup, kind of out of necessity, and then realized pretty quickly, well, I can't take him out of here now. And he turned into their most important player. From the bench to their most important player in the same season. That's not normal.
Yeah.
Once he got on the court and got comfortable, he's just a dynamic combo guard. And in Atlanta, he could play behind Trae Young. He could play with Trae Young, although you get a little small when you start doing that. But he serves it. Also, he could be the thing that allows you to move on from Trae Young if you decide you want to do that. But just the undeniable skill set combined with great genes, son of a professional athlete. We've talked about how important that is to front offices, that you grew up around it, you know it. He checks those boxes. By all accounts, an impressive young man. He's going to do well throughout the interview process. And Jase Richardson is going to go from bench player at Michigan State to, I believe, lottery pick in a span of just a few months.
Yeah. Well, we're getting to the end of the lottery, and the Spurs have 1 million picks in this draft. And we had them taking Dylan Harper earlier. So for me, with the 14th pick, I'm the Spurs. You can take a chance a little bit. I'm going to take Egor Demin from BYU. 6'9", point guard. not a great shooter,
right,
but incredible feel for the game, great passer. And look, the Spurs already have the tallest player in the history of the NBA. Like, why not double down on height? Get another big guy who can get in there and play.
I mean, just imagine.
Yes.
And Demin is another polarizing prospect, a little bit like Jeremiah Fears, in the sense that, man, if the shooting comes around, the other stuff is crystal clear to see.
Yeah.
You know, his ability to play make and
IQ, all that.
Manipulate, ball screen, everything. It's all there at an unusual height.
Yeah.
But the truth is that BYU wasn't a great basketball player, and the shot
hurt him.
Yes, if he shot the ball well at BYU, he'd be going the top 5 instead of maybe bottom of the lottery or even outside of it. But if it pops, let's just daydream for a second. He becomes what it is the people who believe in him think he can become.
Yeah.
You already got Wemby, who's unusually tall for the position he plays. You would have added Dylan Harper with the second pick, who's unusually tall for the position he plays. Stephon Castle is another big jumbo guard. You just get real big everywhere.
Yeah.
And that can be helpful.
Yeah.
You get real big everywhere. 15th pick, Oklahoma City Thunder. Obviously, they don't need anything.
Yeah.
And there's some thought about whether they're even going to execute all these picks, whether adding a rookie to their roster makes sense at this point. But for our purposes, they're picking, and I'll give them Liam McNeeley, the one-and-done standout out of UConn. He only shot 31.7% from 3 this season. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't really affect his draft status too much because there's enough data on him, and NBA people have seen him long enough, whether it was in high school in the EYBL circuit, to know that he's a real shooter. He did not shoot it consistently well at UConn. Also got sidelined by an injury that, just took him away from the court for a while. I just remember, I think I mentioned this on a previous episode, when Bradley Beal was coming out of college, he too did not shoot it well in his 1 year at Florida. And I just remember NBA people saying, but he can shoot.
Yeah.
We're not worried about that number. That number is a problem for Jeremiah Fears.
Yes.
That number's a problem for Egor Demin.
Yep.
It's not a problem for Liam McNeeley because we know he can shoot.
Yeah.
And so this is about the range he goes. And you just, truthfully, as a rookie, you probably wouldn't step on the court very often for the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yeah.
But eventually, as you know, they're not going to be able to pay everybody. And you need to start having young guys on cheap contracts when you can't pay all the veterans who are going to be entering free agency.
Yeah.
So that's the trick that Sam Presti's going to have to figure out, and he's the best at it. But no, we don't need anybody now. But when we can't pay our veterans because the second apron and all that, do we have guys that we've selected, developed, that are ready to step in and fill those roles for a fraction of the price, a fraction of the salary? That's what you're trying to hit on right here if you execute the pick, and Liam McNeeley could theoretically be one of those guys.
All right, we're halfway through the first round. The Orlando Magic now are on the clock, 16th pick overall. I've got him taking a guy Memphis Tiger fans might remember, Nique Clifford from Colorado State, 23 years old, played 5 years of college basketball. Looks like he projects as a pretty good wing player in the NBA. And I just like this Orlando team's already so good defensively. Clifford's a guy who can create a shot, can shoot off the dribble, can drive, all that stuff. And he's got the size to be a good NBA player at that wing position. So I think for Orlando, this would be a guy who could come in and play probably right away.
If you're taking him, you're expecting him to, because like you said, he is older, and that will work against him.
Yeah.
And for some franchises, they'd just be like, we're not taking somebody this age.
Yeah.
In the top 20 of a draft. I just don't believe in that, particularly if I'm already a playoff caliber team and trying to win playoff series. Like it's not awful to have a 23-year-old who can actually play basketball.
Yeah.
I get it. I understand. An 18-year-old prospect with all this room to grow, those are nice too.
Yeah.
But just the idea that you can't take somebody who spent this much time in college because there's less room to grow, or because this guy might help you win a playoff series next season. And not everybody selected in front of him is going to be equipped to do that based off of age. Yeah. So I too would take Cooper Flagg number 1, and he's one of the youngest players in the draft. But I'm not scared of somebody who spent this many years in college, particularly if they can play, and Nique Clifford can play. 17th pick, Minnesota Timberwolves. I've got him taking Danny Wolf out of Michigan. He's a 6'11" center who started his college career in the Ivy League and then transfers to Michigan to play for Dusty May. transfer portal, NIL, that whole story. You never know how guys are going to adjust when they go from what amounts to mid-major basketball to high-major basketball. Sometimes it's seamless, and other times it's very difficult. The seamless stuff has been happening at Tennessee. Dalton Connect 1 year, Chaz Lanier the next. Mid-major players go to Tennessee, and they're awesome in the SEC just like they were awesome in mid-major leagues. Then there's a young man named Cade Tyson who was averaging like 16 points at Belmont, transferred home to play for his home state school, North Carolina, did nothing there this past season. You don't know how it's going to translate. Danny Wolf, it worked.
Yeah.
He went to Michigan and basically treated the Big Ten like it was the Ivy League, 13 points, 10 rebounds per game. He's got guard skills in a 6'11" body. He's a better than some realized defender. And just in this current version of the NBA where there's a real value on just getting as many people on the floor who can dribble, pass, and shoot. Like, let's just get as many people on the floor who can dribble, pass, and shoot and play basketball. Like, there's real advantage to that. Oklahoma City has that on the floor almost all times. They got people on the floor that can dribble. Danny Wolf is going to be a guy who's unusually sized who can dribble, pass, and shoot. He's got a chance to be in the NBA for a long time.
If he's on the Timberwolves, you can put him out there with Luke Garza and have like the twin tower thing. I got the Wizards at number 18, and we had them taking Jeremiah Fears earlier in the draft. And I said part of the thing was, you don't want to go do what you've been doing for all these other drafts and all these long athletic guys, Alex Sarr and all this type of guys. So now let's take another long athletic guy for the Wizards at number 18, Noah Essengue. He's French, but he's been playing in Germany last year. He averaged 11 points. But he's big. He's like 6'9", can move, can dribble, can rebound, all that stuff. How is he going to translate to the NBA? Well, we're at the point in the draft where you start just taking swings. Yeah. And this feels like a pretty good swing to take for a Wizards team that has a year or two left to figure this stuff out.
With the 19th pick, we're back to Brooklyn. And I've got him taking Asa Newell out of the University of Georgia. Go Dogs, indeed. We talked about Carter Bryant earlier. One and done, lottery option, who was kind of just a, off the bench whatever player at Arizona. Asa Newell was like a real college basketball player. Like, he was a great player. Carter Bryant, great prospect. Asa Newell was like a really good player at Georgia. The question becomes, is he going to be somebody who gets most of his work done around the rim, that kind of stuff? Or can he really be a floor spacer and step away from the basket and reliably knock down that shot? If he can, then this is probably too low for him. If he can't, this might be too high for him. That shooting skill is the swing skill for a lot of prospects these days. But what I love most about him is in a league that got really old because of the transfer portal and because of NIL and was quite literally the best men's basketball conference we've ever seen. As a teenager, fresh out of high school, he was able to not only play well in that league, but like really produce against much older players game after game after game. And so that should give some NBA franchises, in our case, Brooklyn, if they were to end up with him, some belief that, okay, not every one and done guy's ready to play, but he might be ready to play because he spent last year playing against a bunch of older guys, and he handled himself quite well.
Did all right. All right, so with the 20th pick, I've got the Miami Heat, and we always hear about Heat culture and the Heat draft their types of guys. So if I'm the Miami Heat right here, I'm taking Drake Powell out of North Carolina. Probably the best defender on North Carolina last season. But to me, he projects as a really good 3-and-D guy in the NBA. Probably the D part first because he's a good defender. He's got a good body, good size, all that stuff. Had a 7-foot wingspan at the combine and 8'7", I think, standing reach. So through the charts on all that stuff. Is he going to be good enough to be a knockdown shooter? Well, we'll see. But I think he could be a guy for me that fits in with kind of the Heat culture and what they're trying to build there.
21st pick, that's the Utah Jazz. I've got him selecting Nolan Traore out of France. He's a 6'4" point guard. Early in his career, he had a reputation as an inefficient player, not a great shooter. But he has improved in both of those areas over the past year to the point where, there's still areas of concern, but not as much of a concern as they would have been this time a year ago. So Traore to Utah as an international prospect, adding point guard depth to a roster that maybe doesn't need everything, but needs a lot of things.
Oh, okay. So we did a whole podcast on this guy, number 22, the Atlanta Hawks, Cedric Coward, and we've seen this guy in these mock drafts anywhere from like top 10 to
I've seen him on big boards as high as like 5, 6.
Yeah. So, but again, this is a guy who 6 months ago no one was talking about, and he's kind of rocketed up the charts the last few weeks, really, particularly since going to the combine, and everyone measured him and everything. He was going to play at Duke this year. He played in like Eastern Washington, Washington State. Now he was going to go to Duke. Now he's not going to Duke because he went through this process.
His life changed.
Yeah, and so. Is he going to be what in the NBA? Can he be a scorer? Can he be a defender? What can he fit a role? Whatever. Everyone's just kind of betting on the measurables at this point, and we'll see where Cedric Coward goes. If I'm an NBA team, I don't know if I'd draft him top 10 just because I haven't seen that much of him, right. But who knows?
He seems to have a wide range. And whenever I say seems to, I'm saying according to mock drafts and big boards and that kind of stuff. Again, I've seen him as high as 5 or 6. Here he is all the way down at 22.
Yeah.
I think that range is – I don't know that he'll actually be in play at 5 or 6, but if you told me he was in play around 10, I could see that because I know he only played like 6 games at Washington State.
Yeah.
But go look at how many games Kyrie played at Duke.
Yeah.
How many games Darius Garland played at Vanderbilt. Front offices will select guys off of small sample sizes.
Yeah.
And Coward's especially interesting because unlike Darius Garland or Kyrie Irving, when you are using a high pick on them with small sample size, you at least have all of the teenage stuff where he was always supposed to be in these conversations. Here's a guy who was never supposed to be in these conversations. He started Division III.
Yeah.
All right? Then he goes to Washington State. It's like, okay, he's going to be a high major player now. But still just Washington State, and he was awesome. Mm-hmm. You didn't see it. I didn't see it.
Because he only played 2 weeks.
So nobody saw it.
Yeah.
But you go back and look at it, and then all the measurables at the combine, the way he measures, the way he moves, the way he jumps, everything was just like, we got to, like, this is a real player. And he might not have been on your radar a year ago or 2 years ago to this degree, but everything that happened since the pre-draft process started for him has been awesome for him.
Also, like, what does it say, Gary, that, like, you and I have talked about all these guys. We've gone through this whole drafting, and neither of us took him till 22.
Yeah, it just means
we weren't at the combine. But
but it's just the way we could do it again in
maybe
a
he goes
week.
top 5. Yeah.
Right. I don't. This is how much his life changed. He signed with Duke and had an NIL deal in place and the whole deal.
Yeah.
Duke would not even have gone down that path if they thought he was legitimately staying in the draft.
Yeah.
And he probably doesn't go down that path if he thinks he's legitimately staying in the draft. He got to the combine and it was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, now you might need to stay in the draft. So here he is. And that'll be one of the stories of draft night. Where does this guy nobody even knew existed 6 months ago?
Yeah.
Where does this guy go in the draft? It could be top 10. It could be outside of the top 20, but he's going to go somewhere, and it's a pretty remarkable story. 23rd pick, Indiana Pacers. I got Joan Beringer out of France. He's a 6'11 front court player, 7'4 wingspan, versatile defender, can rim protect. At this point, he's just best prospect available for me, working off of a big board. And, I know the Pacers have front court pieces, but at this point in the draft, you're just trying to add depth with, I don't want to say no regard for roster construction, but you're just trying to get somebody that can be on your. Can this person still be a meaningful part of your team in 4 years?
Yeah.
And best prospect available, I end up with Beringer in Indianapolis with the Pacers.
All right. Well, with the Thunder, again, we've talked about them at this point, trying to reload, trying to have guys ready for when this current group of guys signs out, goes elsewhere. So I've got him taking Noah Penda. He's from Paris. He played for Le Mans last season. 6'8", 6'9", wing guy, great defender, apparently a great spacer, great passer. Doesn't it sound like the kind of guys the Thunder put in there? We'll see how he develops offensively. He's shot the ball pretty well, 35% on threes, but I feel like he's a little bit older than some of these guys. He's in his 20s, early 20s, but I feel like he's the kind of guy who you'll see one of these teams take a shot at and see if he develops.
In the 25th pick, Orlando Magic, we've got him selecting Thomas Sorber out of Georgetown. Another guy like Cedric Coward, whose college career was cut short by injury. But before Sorber suffered a left foot injury in February that ended his time at Georgetown, he was having an awesome season.
Yeah.
Georgetown wasn't that great, so maybe not a lot of eyeballs on it, but he was averaging 15 and 9 and established himself very quickly as somebody who could either be a one-and-done first-round pick or come back to Georgetown and compete for Big East Player of the Year honors.
Yeah.
Had he been back at Georgetown next season, he would have been All-American level guy.
Yeah.
So, and he's not somebody that coming out of high school people necessarily projected as a one-and-done. This is a bit of a surprise, but he did enough while he was playing in the Big East to show like this is a proper place for him. A year ago, did Thomas Sorber think he was going to be a top 30 pick in the draft? Probably not.
Yeah.
But he did enough at Georgetown to make that a likely scenario.
All right, 26th pick. Brooklyn's already had 1 million picks in this draft. I've got him going for a point guard. We've only seen one, true kind of undersized point guard, Jeremiah Fears, go in this draft. So I've got him taking Walter Clayton Jr. out of Florida. Guy went on a heater during the SEC tournament, NCAA tournament. We all saw the shot making was incredible with him. A little bit undersized, I guess, 6'2".
He's little.
But he can score, man. Ooh. He can fill it up. And we saw him go crazy this season, especially later in the year. And I think some team's going to take him, and it might be one of those guys. Maybe he ends up being like a six-man instant offense off the bench type player. But he can score, and I think that's something if you need that at some point on your roster.
This is one where I'm a little lower than most on him.
Yeah.
Just because I didn't think of him as a first-round prospect before the NCAA tournament. And sometimes you can get caught up in what you see in a run. Like we did this with Shabazz Napier. Yeah. Oh man, you got to take him, and then it was like, but he's little and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So we'll see, but the shot making is undeniable. The problem with being a great shot maker is if you can't stay on the court, you can't make a shot.
Yeah.
And he is little, and there's some questions about his enthusiasm on the defensive end of the court. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got physical disadvantages, and then it's like, do you even want to do this? Do you even want to play on this end? There's some questions like that, but there are people I respect. My colleague Adam Finkelstein at CBS Sports who are like pretty high on him and have been even before the NCAA tournament. So as always, we'll see. But this is about the range it appears Walter Clayton would come off of the board. 27th pick, Brooklyn Nets. I've got him taking Hugo Gonzalez out of Spain. 6'7", 19-year-old. Good body for a teenage basketball player. Plus defender, good motor. There are questions about his shooting, but there's enough other good stuff there. The type of guy you can say that your job's tonight to make his job hard. And yes, sir, let's go do that. There's enough of that stuff here that even if the shooting doesn't come around, he can be a useful NBA player. But if you want him to be everything you need him to be, spending a first-round pick on him, the shooting does need to improve.
Yeah. All right, so we're getting down to the end of the first round here. And with the 28th pick, this guy to me was one of the most interesting guys in college basketball, Johni Broome from Auburn. Only because we talked all season about the two guys who were in the running for player of the year was Cooper Flagg, who's going number one, and then Johni Broome, who a lot of drafts don't even have going in the first round.
Right.
A little bit undersized, but plays such a smart style of basketball, played a long time in college, so he's a little bit older. But I love the way he plays. It reminds me of Draymond, of course. You hear that a lot. But just that ability to kind of help and be in the right place, right time, position, all that stuff. And I feel like a team like the Celtics might be sort of a lost year for them with Jason Tatum being out, and they're going to have to make some changes. Maybe he can come in there and play and play with different veteran guys and know his role and be able to fit in. I'm curious what you think about him as a prospect.
Let's talk about him as a player first.
Yeah.
Great college player.
Yeah.
Awesome college basketball player. But this is different.
Yeah.
And I'm skeptical.
Yeah.
Let me put it this way. If he works, I'll circle back and say, well,
even if he fits in, not put in the work.
Yeah. Like I don't mean, I mean, if it pops,
if it works for him.
You look up and Johni Broome's a real NBA player in 3 years, like, oh yeah, he's a real player. I'll circle back and say, well, I guess just we should stop. He's one of those guys you can't doubt based on physical appearance, because coming out of high school, people said, you're just a mid-major player. Yeah. And he went to a mid-major player and was awesome. And then he transferred to the SEC school. And they were like, yeah, but he was a mid-major recruit. I don't know how good he'll be here. And he was awesome at Auburn. And so now people are just doing the same thing. Yeah, but I don't know if it'll work in the NBA. And here it's working again. There could be some of that, right?
Yeah.
Obi Toppin coming out of college, people said, I don't know if this is going to work in the NBA. Well, you know.
And it did in the first place he was.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But now it's popped. Yeah. Right. Now, they're very different players, but like, sometimes we're just wrong about these guys.
Yeah.
We just assume for whatever reason something's not going to work, and it just does the way it's always worked. I can envision that.
Yeah.
I would bet against it.
Yeah.
If only because he's, and from a prospect perspective, very old.
Yep.
But also, like, he doesn't move very well.
Yeah.
And he doesn't jump at all.
Yeah.
And that's a hard league to play in if you don't move very well and you don't jump at all. So we'll see. I've been wrong a million times about prospects. Everybody has. Even the people who run these franchises, they're wrong all the time. But if I had to bet against, I'd bet against probably.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Yeah. We'll see. 29th pick, that's the Phoenix Suns. Ben Saraf out of Israel. He's another international prospect with nice positional size. He has concerns about athleticism and shooting, and that's the stuff that will keep him out of the lottery. But he's a real playmaker out of pick and rolls, and has been on the NBA front office's radars for multiple years now. And so this is the type of guy, could go late 20s, could go in the 30s, maybe even slip to the 40s, but just an international player who has been monitored for a while. And there are obvious questions, but he's shown that he can do enough interesting stuff with the ball in his hands where, he's got a chance to go in the first round. Closer to the end than the beginning, but certainly a chance.
All right, last pick of the first round, Los Angeles Clippers on the clock. I'm going to go with Maxime Renault, who played at Stanford last season, and it's sort of a weird season at Stanford, but it's never a good sign when you read the guy's draft capsule thing, and the number one thing is, has the size to be an NBA player. I mean, he's 7 feet tall. He's a big dude. But I think the thing with him that's sort of interesting is he shot a lot of threes last year, and he made a lot. He shot 35% and shot over 5 threes a game. I also like the Clippers, just thinking of a situational thing. If he goes to the Clippers, getting to play against Zubats every day in practice. Like, I know guys around the league love playing Zubats and talk about him all the time as sort of one of these hidden great centers in the league. So maybe develop him that way a little bit too. But who knows? He's a guy who could end up being something in the NBA.
In my personal mock draft at CBSSports.com, I have him in the first round and even higher than this. Yeah. The interesting thing about him is, he spent all these years at Stanford. He got better every year.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's a necessity for prospects, but it's certainly better than the alternative.
Yeah.
He got better every year, and he has reportedly shot it really well throughout the pre-draft process to give him a shot of going in the first round. So, just almost without exception, anybody that size who is a high-volume three-point shooter and makes them is going to get serious looks.
Is the reason he's like kind of projected bottom half of the first round and all these things just because NBA teams are scared of big guys now?
No, I don't think that's it. It's just that, he could get hunted on defense.
Yeah.
Like there's always
put him in the pick and roll.
Yeah, they just pull him out.
Switch him.
Now let's get him. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Can you now we just drop cover? What? So there's those types of concerns, but the positives are largely on the offensive end. And if he can do nothing else, he is a very tall, high IQ basketball player who can comfortably take threes and make a good percentage of them. You'll make a lot of money playing this sport, given the way the game's played now. And so the question just becomes, is he going to make a lot of money in the NBA for a long time or somewhere else? But he'll be playing basketball for a while.
Somewhere. Yeah. All right. Well, that takes care of our first round here on the Draft Board Breakdown Show on Grind City Media. We did all 30 picks. I don't know. I'm kind of really interested to see how this is. I feel like the top 3, 4, 5, we know who that tier is. And then after that, it kind of feels wide open in that next.
No, and that's important to remember because I think heading into any draft, people get so consumed with the mock drafts.
Yeah.
And some of those, frankly, can become a little bit of groupthink. You see, well, this guy's got this guy here and this guy here, so maybe I need to get my guy a little closer to there. And then they all start to look similar.
Yeah.
And then the draft unfolds, and it's like, but I thought, and sometimes you like what you thought, then like the mock drafts are just wrong sometimes, right? Yeah. So it's always a fun night. It rarely goes completely as scripted. There are always surprises, and of all the drafts, I know the NFL draft is the biggest one, but for my purposes, the NBA draft is the one I enjoy the most because it is often filled with people that I've been covering and in some cases even got to know over the years. So it'll be a fun night, and I don't know that we'll get it exactly right 1 through 30, but we'll have some of them right. I'm certain,
especially with some of these teams having 2 and 3 and 4 picks. There's going to be guys probably drafted later on that we haven't even mentioned or talked about or thought about, because teams are going to be like, we can't play all 4 of these guys, so let's put somebody in the G League or draft and stash, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so. It'll be a fun night. Trades, I'm certain, are on the way as well. There could be big names moving, perhaps on draft night. Yeah. Can't wait. Gonna be fun.
All right. Well, we will see you back here. We got one more episode of the Draft Board Breakdown Show to go, but get ready for the draft. It's coming up June 25th. We'll be live on Grind City Media that night too, so tune in. For Gary Parrish, I'm Lang Whitaker. You've been watching Grind City Media's Draft Board Breakdown Show presented by Southland Casino.